Chase Young and Ohio State versus Trevor Lawrence and Clemson is coming. And I want to talk about it after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I'm not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college related, sports related. We have a good time. And today, I want to talk about Ohio State versus Clemson, and more precisely, Chase Young and Trevor Lawrence. But first, I want to encourage you to sign up for my newsletter where I write way too many words about sports, mostly college football at large, in addition to the work that I do over at ouinsider.com. If you don't already have a membership there, you should, because the VIB board is popping. And if you do so between now and December 7th, you'll get an opportunity to win the Hertz lamp. I'm going to give it away after December 7th for anybody that is, well, if you are subscribed to the newsletter, you're entered to win. Okay. In Chase Young, we see the NCAA's capricious bylaws at work, its arbitrary punitive system, and the reason why I want to see the floodgates obliterated by the Fair Pay for Fair Play Act. After being held out of Ohio State's 73-14 win against Maryland, which featured, among other things, Buckeye head coach Ryan Day calling a timeout up 42-0, 44 seconds left to play in the first half while on defense because the Buckeyes needed style points, for the brand. Young and Ohio State were delivered a verdict on Wednesday on how many more games the all-world defensive end would need to sit out to justify breaking one of the stupidest rules in the NCAA's stupid book. Young accepted a loan from a family friend he met after he began the recruiting process at Ohio State. He received the loan so that he could fly his girlfriend to LA to watch the Buckeyes beat Washington to death with their nuts. It didn't matter that Young publicly admitted this or that there is no shortage of Buckeye fans who would have formed a cash queue to give him money for a plane ticket and then some. It doesn't matter that it's actually a family friend. It only matters that it was a family friend who had met him through the recruiting process, and that's a violation. Or that the number 2 ranked Buckeyes are on a collision course that could see them play number 3 Clemson, who is coached by the highest paid coach in the history of college sports, but doesn't want to see players like Young get paid to play college football. Hypocrisy at its finest, Dabo Swinney. Or that Young repaid the loan just 4 months later, or that the Buckeye Compliance Office had done a thorough job to uncover the violation in October, or that the Buckeyes held their best player and our best hope for a defensive Heisman finalist out of a game where he would likely have added to his 15.5 tackles for loss, 13.5 sack tally in a season where he is a no-brainer first-team All-America selection. What mattered to this governing body of my favorite sport is that he broke one of their stupid rules. The NCAA is as welcome as water on a grease fire and as useless as a habanero cough drop. So the Buckeyes asked for a 1-game suspension on appeal and got 2. Why? Because the NCAA said so. That's it. That's all. There's no formal unit of measurement for these things. Just ask Missouri how it feels about serving its bowl ban this season when they're a win away from bowl eligibility because a tutor did homework for 12 football players, while Mississippi State employed a tutor who did homework for 10 football players and 1 men's basketball player. But for the same thing, basically, they lost 4 football scholarships and 2 basketball scholarships over a 2-year academic calendar period and had to pay a fine. This is the kind of lopsided punishment and the reason as to why schools might tell their compliance office to, lay off. Don't tell anybody about that, or go with the in vogue move and fight the charges. UNC fought them and suffered no real punishment for academic fraud. The Tar Heels listed and enrolled students and athletes in classes that were fake with fake instructors for nearly 2 decades. Not only did they not suffer consequence, but they flipped the middle finger to the NCAA and kept it moving. It's in this context that I understand Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith being asked if he considered just, tucking Young's violation into the junk drawer and going on about his business while letting the nation's best offense, Ohio State, and the nation's best defense, also Ohio State, continue on like a blurred female and devour all suitors to the throne. That's a Mandalorian reference. It's a good show. The Buckeyes are 9-0 and like Gilroy, dropping down to 3-8, and hell, they've been hurting people. That's a Varsity Blues reference. Old Gene said he's been in this business for 34 years and he's never covered up anything and never even thought to cover up anything. And you can't prove he ever has. Dust the place for prints. You won't find his. I mean, that's my joke. The last part, that's a joke. But it's meant to underscore what we all know goes on when the money bag doesn't change hands multiple times. But it shouldn't matter if the bag changed hands, whether it was at a dark alley behind Urban Meyer's Pint House or at Ohio Stadium in front of 102,000 at the coin flip of an 11 a.m. kickoff with Michigan. Chase Young is one of the best football players in the world, and we only get him in our sport for just a handful more games because, well, the suits said so. But like Ohio State, we get him back for the game against Penn State, and I can't wait to watch him make like his brethren, the Okudah. That's a Predator reference, and hunt for sport and honor. Predator references. He looks like the Predator. What do you want? But that's how you should also come to see Ronnie Bass, who is doppelganger for, Trevor Lawrence, or vice versa. He quarterbacks Clemson. Since the pedestrian for his standard start, Lawrence has returned to form that made him the most lethal usurper since Robert Baratheon. He's thrown 23 touchdowns against 8 picks while completing 67.1% of his passes for just over 2,300 yards through 10 games. Those aren't the numbers that had some openly calling for him to skip this season because his draft stock had already topped out as the forecasted number 1 overall pick in a draft that ain't gonna happen until the year of the Tokyo Olympics. But they're better than that. He's averaged more yards per pass attempt this year, and his passer rating is 10 points higher than last year. And he needs to throw just 8 more touchdowns this year to pass the total of 30 touchdowns that he had last year. Trevor Lawrence has rebounded in a big way. Distill his season numbers to the last half of this season, and you'll see that the Tigers have really been led by him. He's passed for 1,172 yards with 15 touchdowns, 3 picks. I know Travis Etienne is back there, but you get the point. That doesn't get to the pit in the peach that is the 6'6" Georgia dude who's just a sophomore and still can't legally drink everywhere, but they're going to play the national championship in the one place in the state where he can drink legally with his parents. Clemson is in the midst of a 25-game win streak, and Lawrence has started 21 of them while playing in every last one. This is the part where it bears saying Lawrence was the nation's number 1 recruit in the 2018 class, and the nation's number 2 that year, quarterback's Ohio State. His name is Justin Fields, and he's also undefeated as field general. Ohio State's fans will have you know that fact. People forget how ridiculously awesome Lawrence was, though, coming out of Cartersville, Georgia. He averaged 16.6 yards per pass attempt, threw 160 touchdowns against 21 interceptions and just 1 interception thrown as a prep senior. But in recruiting, he was known. And he was neglected by Georgia's previous regime. One of my favorite facts is that the thought is Lawrence ended up at Clemson over Georgia because the head coach and offense coordinator at the time, Mark Richt and Brian Schottenheimer respectively, chose to do things like recruit David Mills, who's at Stanford, over a guy like Jake Fromm, who was committed to Bama and then flipped when Kirby Smart took over, and neglected Lawrence to keep Jacob Eason. And that's worked out for them just like this, just bad. And that's where I think we're headed. While the talk is about the SEC getting 2 in, LSU having beaten 4 top 10 teams, and Georgia beating Notre Dame at home, and Florida in the world's largest cocktail party, the 2 teams who have remained healthy for the most of the part of this year and destroyed teams with lethal efficiency on both sides of the ball are Ohio State and Clemson. And the best player on Ohio State and Clemson, respectively, are Lawrence and Young. So give me the Buckeyes pass rush against how quickly Lawrence can see it. Give me Okudah versus T. Higgins. Give me Jordan Fuller versus Justyn Ross. Give me J.K. Dobbins versus Isaiah Simmons. And give me Travis Etienne versus Tuf Borland. Give me the battle, college football. Give me this game. Chase Young, Trevor Lawrence are 2 of our best, and I would love to see them do battle in the playoff. All right, that is it for me. Doses.